Hi, everyone, and welcome to week 4 in social and political context of early childhood education. We're going to just talk through a quick history lesson and understanding how quickly or slowly our world or our universe, our country changes. In 1868, the 14th Amendment to the Constitution was ratified on July 9, 1868, and granted citizenship to all persons born or naturalized in the United States, which included former slaves recently freed. In 1869, Plessy versus Ferguson, the Supreme Court rules that racial segregation laws do not violate the 14th Amendment as long as they adhere to a separate but equal standard. As later rulings will demonstrate, the court failed to even enforce this meager standard. It would be another 6 decades before the court meaningfully revisited its constitutional responsibility to confront racial segregation in public schools. In 1954, Brown versus Board of Education, the Supreme Court rules that separate but equal is a flawed standard. Let's stop and look at the effects of Brown versus Board. Integrated but not equal. September 4th of 1957, Central High School in Little Rock. Hazel Brown shouts at Elizabeth Eckford as she calmly marches down to school. National Guard blocks her from entering, and integrated but definitely not equal is reinforced. Key points to note: the Brown decision provided no insight on how the integration would occur, nor did it outline what would be the fate of African American school teachers and administrators once the schools had been integrated. Black students integrated with white students, but primarily into previously white schools. Many Black schools had closed as a result, and many Black teachers and administrators left the teaching field. Both were forced and on their own. The results are still evident today, with the majority of our teaching education staff being white or Caucasian. Once school integration shifts were implemented, teachers now had to pass teacher proficiency assessments to determine which teachers would be transferred and to where. Of these assessments, a large component of them were skewed and culturally biased. In simplistic terms, the tests were used to control how many African American teachers entered the teaching profession. And we need citations for all of this. In addition to the biased teacher proficiency assessment, a tremendous negative impact of the desegregation of schools was the displacement of 38,000 teachers in the 17 border states. Black teachers who left the profession were often replaced by white teachers or not even replaced at all. Any recognition of Black educators were undermined and undervalued. So what? We're integrated now, right? Take a look at this lunch menu down here. Friday, African American, chicken drumsticks, collard green, sweet potatoes, and watermelon. Is that great? That's not representative of an African American culture necessarily. How about this book found in schools? Let's hurry or we'll miss the public lynching. People in Kenya are very active in sports. They play rugby and soccer. They also like boxing. Most people are aware that Kenyans are able to run very fast. They can run for a long time. Kenyans have won many races. Some Kenyans run with bare feet. As you can tell, Kenya is a pretty great place. Does this just promote stereotypes? Perhaps constructs biases? Maybe even unconscious biases. And then here's a math problem. Each tree had 46 oranges. If 8 slaves picked them equally, then how much would each slave pick? We need more of this representation of different cultures within our school. Lewis thinks that he can use long division with decimals just as he does with whole numbers. He writes 78.5 divided by 9.1 as 9.1 divided into 78.5, but he does not know what to do with the decimals. And then it describes how to do, use fractions to represent Lewis's dividend and divisor, etc. And then, as we saw at the first in-person class, many different books are currently available that represent different children's identities, cultures, families. So we need more of these. So are we really integrated? So I want to say that the video is rated PG-13. There is some inappropriate language and gestures. You don't have to watch it. You can turn off this right now.
Racism. You know, the problem that Crash failed to solve. And specifically, we're going to discuss school segregation, which it turns out is still a big problem.
Racial segregation is on the rise. The number of schools where 1% or less of the student population is white has more than doubled in the last 20 years.
That's true. Even as our society has grown more diverse, nearly 7,000 schools have the same racial makeup as the audience of your average Tyler Perry movie. And that one white guy is Leonard Maltin, and he has to be there. It's his job. Boo, a Medea Halloween, 3 stars. Now, at this point, if you're in a city like New York, you're probably thinking, oh, splendid. I know where this is going. A story vilifying the backwards and racist American South. Let me just grab a handful of kale chips that I can munch on while feeling superior. Well, hold on. There is something you should probably know.
According to the UCLA Civil Rights Project, the South is the least segregated region for Black students. And in fact, New York State is now the most segregated system in America, in large part due to New York City.
Oh, shit, liberal white New Yorkers. Twist ending, you were racist the whole time. Put back those persimmons you bought yourselves as a treat from Fairway. You don't deserve them anymore. And look, it would still be problematic, even if these schools were roughly equivalent academically, as that would still be a violation of the principle of Brown versus Board of Education that separate educational facilities are inherently unequal. But in practice, they are very rarely equal in any way. Black and Latino children are more likely to attend schools with inexperienced teachers, which are then less likely to offer a college prep curriculum. On top of which, because race and class are inextricably linked, those students are 6 times as likely to be in high poverty schools. And while there are teachers and students working incredibly hard in those places, they are often doing so with fewer resources, as one student learned during a school exchange program.
Once a year, we do what's called a school swap, where students that go to county high schools attend a school in the city for one day, and then students in the city attend a school in the county for one day.
I went in, and the first thing that I noticed actually was all this stuff around here. I'm talking about stuff that looked like it costs lots of money. When teachers come in, they can get right on topic. They have multiple computers that they can use. And it's like, wow. And then I related back to my school. Well, we don't have all that.
Okay, I get what that program was trying to do, but it still seems cruel, giving students a glimpse of what other kids are getting. At least on a plane, they cover first class with a curtain. And sure, they might still bake cookies and waft the smell down the aisle, but that's just to fuck with you. So how is it possible that our nation's schools are by some measures more segregated now than they have been in over 4 decades? Well, it turns out places like New York haven't so much resegregated as never really bothered integrating in the first place, because the 1964 Civil Rights Act was very carefully crafted by Northern lawmakers. It targeted the kind of segregation by law which existed in the South, so you couldn't have a school that was officially designated whites only, but it exempted the so-called racial imbalance of northern schools. So if a New York school was all white because it was drawing from an all-white area, even if that area had been kept that way due to a host of explicitly racist housing policies, that was somehow fine. And if you're thinking that is some hypocritical bullshit, you are not alone. Malcolm X was pointing this out in New York at the time.
You don't have to go to Mississippi to find a segregated school system. We have it right here in New York City. It shows that the problems that the white liberals have been pointing the finger at the Southern segregationists and condemning them for exist right here in New York City.
Yeah, of course racism exists in New York. Have you never seen West Side Story? It is a musical about love transcending the obstacle of one person being Puerto Rican. It'll never work. And for what it's worth, when on rare occasions northern cities were forced to desegregate, things got just as ugly as they did down south. Listen to one Boston man describe his memories of being sent to.
So I'm gonna place this in our required video list for you to watch on your own. I'm afraid that I might not be able to upload the whole video playing while I'm recording. So there's the question. Are we really integrated? Talk to you later. See you online.